Hello, welcome to the Eagle's Wing podcast, the show where we equip you to soar in every area of life, spiritually, physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially. I'm your host, Deuce Brandt, and I'm thrilled to introduce today's guest, Anthony Benton, also known as Tony B. He's an entrepreneur, innovator, community leader, and a man with deep purpose. From humble beginnings to tech innovation in the skilled trades, Tony has built a portfolio that uplifts underserved communities, bridges community gaps, and leads with a kingdom mindset. Get ready for an engaging conversation on leadership, purpose, and the power of skillful and godly wisdom.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Honestly, hearing it coming out of your mouth sounds a lot better. So I appreciate that. Thank you for having me.
All right. Yeah. And it's true humility. When someone, like, I'm that kind of person where someone says good things about me, I'm kind of like, I don't, but yeah, absolutely. So Tony, to start us off, can you share a little bit about your journey? What inspires you to step into entrepreneurship at such a young age, and how your early experiences shaped your mission today?
Yeah, so I guess how far back you want me to start? Straight out of the womb? No, I'm just kidding. But no, honestly, I think true entrepreneurialism is something that doesn't necessarily have to be taught. I mean, the skills and the techniques, but at a very young age, I remember going to my sister's softball games, being a young kid and going up to the parents there. And because my parents weren't there, maybe, right? It was kind of like, hey, we'll come back. This is how we got babysat, was you stay there, you sit around the sister's practice, and we'll come back and pick you guys up. So I would do little gigs for the parents and say, hey, I want to get something from the snack shack. Can I do something for you? If I go get it for you, whatever, right? So it was always this innovation of not being afraid of, getting rejection. I would literally go to every single parent. And so it was like a fun running joke. But I think, those are like early seeds into later in life where, then I got into sales at the age of 16. I did retail, I did door to door, I did cold calling. I mean, you literally name it. I really just had that personality and that knack towards sales. But again, I don't truly think that everybody is just born a salesman, right? I mean, we're selling constantly, so you have to improve those skills, sharpen it, enhance it. And over time, I think that's what I liked. I liked being able to be uncomfortable, get into situations that I wasn't really too sure about, and then just with wit and innovation, find a way through that problem. I think in seeing early success in sales really cultivated this just, entrepreneurial spirit in me that, hey, regardless of times get tough, the ups and the downs, I have that tunnel vision. Also being an athlete, I think that all those things kind of tie in together for, what made me do what I am doing now.
Okay, yeah, no, that's very good that you talked about that, because some of my questions coming up later are going to talk about the early days. But just to kind of give a backstory to the listeners, we've known each other, I'd say 5-6 years now. It's been a handful, and we've worked on projects together. We've had countless conversations and strategy sessions, and mentoring each other, and just kind of growing, and we've never really put down the idea of doing something, professionally together. It's always been like as peers, or as, I'd call you or you'd call me, and we talk about what's going on and be like, hey, have you tried this? And it goes, oh, and it's like a light bulb. I remember just a quick story. When I was gifted a washer and dryer, I could not find anybody to help me. Now I'm a strong guy, but try to put a washer and dryer on the roof rack of your car, or the dryer, and put the washer in the back. I needed somebody to help me, and I called Tony, and he immediately came to my help and assisted me. And it's something, something I always think about. It's that servant's heart. It's that willingness to do it. We're not professional movers. We're not, bodybuilders, and, I wouldn't call us muscle class. We're more intellectual. We're more, work on with our brains and with our intellect. But that desire to help is something that I truly appreciate. So again, that memory, it fills me with joy. So thank you again. And so doing some show prep in your bio, you talk about this story of when you were younger, your parents told you that Santa might not come this year and might not make it to your home. And so I understand the years of black, I understand how, life happens. And sometimes you're above and it's feast and everything is good and sales are coming in and money is great. And then there's the complete opposite where it's like there's no rain for years and you're in the desert and you feel like you're dying. And so I get that. But the question is, I believe that experiences like that kind of shaped who you are today and kind of your mission in moving forward.
Yep.
And so the question is, how has overcoming that childhood struggle fueled your passion for financial literacy and entrepreneurship and to help others in similar situations?
Yeah, that was the first industry I got into in my entrepreneurial journey. Was 18 years old. My dad had nobody really taught our family entrepreneurial ownership, money management, these things at a young age. That's why, I was a second, from my mom's side, second generation immigrant of a family, so nobody really was coming to us, giving us, these blueprints, these paths. My dad was really the first one that kind of started to break the mold. I was 18 years old at the time, just finishing up high school and doing college classes at the time, and I hated it. I was like, this isn't for me. Community college especially was just not where I wanted to be. And my dad, and we just had a really good conversation about just, like you said, constantly struggling, going through this lack, not wanting to be in that anymore for our family. And so he had gotten into a company called WFG at the time, and this was a big, kind of like from a lot of the larger, insurance gurus back in the day that came through and just built these massive MLMs. And so, like most people probably, right, initially get caught up into nothing against MLMs. I think, some of them are good, top 1% do well, right? But it helped me create the mindset that I think I really needed, reading the right books, getting around the right people, just dreaming, you know what I mean? I think that ultimately fueled with, hey, here's how to save for retirement. Here's how to protect yourself. And, you die, you pass away, life insurance. And so there were so many things that I started to learn about, like investments and things that I was like, okay, at least when I pass away, I know that my kids are set up and all these things. But, I wasn't happy with that there, right? I was like, well, I want to live on the fruits of my labor as well. I want to be an innovator. And so initially, I think that I struggled a lot in that industry because it's, an 18-year-old coming to you and saying, hey, let's talk about your retirement. They're like, what? So quickly, I think that's when I joined into the more of the marketing, the tech, like brain work. Digital marketing was just now on the cusp, getting hot. And this was back in like the end of 2018, 2019, beginning. This was when Ty Lopez was doing his massive YouTube pushes. And then that's when I had bought one of his courses. And from there, I think that's when it opened the door. It was just access to all of these amazing business owners that were running, how to set it up, getting incorporated, like the things I had started to just like, oh my gosh, this is the things I was waiting for. Not, again, nothing against the MLMs, but there was a lack of, I felt like true business ownership that I wasn't getting, like, oh, how to set up, what's the difference between a C Corp and S Corp or LLCs and, having a board of directors, like this is true business in my mind, right? And this is how McDonald's and Walmart, and you know what I mean? And so I think that's when my itch really was started to be met. And so then I could couple in the mindset, because a lot of it is mindset that I gained from the MLM industry, and then enhancing my skills, right? Becoming, creating a product where it's like, okay, there's not a pre-select price on this. Like, I just have to be a good salesperson. I'm creating the value. I'm creating the price margin, and so many of these things where it gave you kind of like a true flexibility and freedom to create whatever dream you wanted. And so from there, I think that's when like the hook for me, landing an initial few early clients where, to me, it's a God thing, right? Like one of my biggest early clients was it was a show. So they called it Sam Talk, and it was like TED Talk, but for entrepreneurs. And so they had Dan Kennedy go up, like Jay Abraham, went up, and this is the $1 billion man. A lot of people might know him. But there was another gentleman that I saw from Ty Lopez's course, and he was, to me, one of the best trainers in that course because he's been working since the MySpace days. And so I remember just going up to him and being like, oh, hey, like, thank you. Because of you, honestly, and learning through the course that you did on Ty's, I'm standing here right now with this client that I landed. That's, you know, with all these thought leaders, like it was just crazy to me. Like my first client, you know what I mean? I'm with billion-dollar men and all these thought leaders, and immediately he was like, "Oh, do you have my course?" And I was like, "No." And he was like $1,000 course. "Here you go, man. Like, give me your email. Let's connect." And so just this kinship to get into these access to these communities, these masterminds later on through that same gentleman, maybe a year or two later, I'd gotten a chance to join Jeffrey Gitomer mastermind. And so if people know him, he's like the king of sales, old red book of selling, you know, guru. And so I was really getting to a new level in my point of my career, because paying, you know, I think it was like $2,000 to $3,000 a month for this mastermind is no joke, right? You're sitting with some, you know, at least most of those people in there are making six figures or more, right? And so quickly, I think, right, the access to the environment and access to all these things shortly after that time, everything went crazy with COVID too, right? So then I ended up kind of initial breakout 2020, everyone loses everything. I kind of stepped away from that mastermind, but I still got a chance in the early year, like months, to gain so much wisdom, so much access, and to see how much value I was bringing to that community. You know what I mean? Because if I'm having Jeffrey Gitomer, the king of sales, tell me, "Tony, you're a genius." Like, you know, it's like sometimes you're right. We're humble. We don't see it. We're so close to it. But when somebody at that level and that caliber could tell me that, I was like, I need to stop feeling like, oh, I can't do this or not. You know what I mean? I need to see what these other people are seeing in me, you know? And so I think shortly after, that's what really helped me within COVID. Even though everyone's losing money, all these things, I get a six-figure contract right away, you know? And so this is with a karaoke bar here, and I'm kind of rambling, I'm sorry, but that is how this is all going. So I get a six-figure contract, you know what I mean? During the midst of COVID, everyone's losing out. It was a headache of a contract, I'm not gonna lie. Like, that was a big lesson I learned for that, because it was in the nightlife industry. And so it was a karaoke bar here on the Strip in the Venetian, the largest karaoke bar in the world. And just so many things that I'm like, wow, you know, I'm at a time where everybody's losing out. God's just catapulted me to the, you know, I'd say the highest point of my career at that time, you know? And of course I had to learn so much of hard knocks going through that, you know, that was so much things that I've seen spiritually for me to this point, that everything that I've done in my path, whether it be the sales that I grew up doing, the door to anything, you know what I mean? God's utilized all of those skills, all of those talents, all of the background to allow me to now put all of me into this new venture that, you know, hopefully we'll talk about in a minute. So
Absolutely. Well, you did bring up a lot, and I wrote down some notes because some things that you said really spoke to me. The first thing I want to talk about is you talked about your dad and how he sat you down and was like, "Hey, no one taught us to do these things. Like, we don't know, but we're going to stumble in the dark. We're going to figure it out." That is the beginning of all wisdom, all knowledge is you must admit, I'm lacking, I don't have, I've made mistakes. Whatever it is, if you admit it, it's kind of like asking for forgiveness in our faith walk with Christ. It's you come to the cross acknowledging you're a sinner and saying, you know what, I'm not perfect and I need a savior. I need you, Jesus, is the first step. But here's the cool thing is that he covers us then. It's like the free gift. But if I was to bring you a birthday gift and it's wrapped in this beautiful box and it's wrapping paper and there's a big red bow on top and I'm super happy, I'm super excited, and I give it to you, Tony, and you go, okay, and you take the box, you throw it to the side, and you never open it and you never receive it. That's like this gift of salvation. So that was something that it struck me when you talked about how usually we come to this conclusion ourselves after making a lot of really dumb decisions in life and messing up our life, kind of digging a big hole for ourselves. But sometimes somebody will come along and give us mentorship and wisdom and help lead us to where you don't necessarily have to fall into the hole. But I like that you talked about the idea of, nobody taught us, and then you went and saw it, and then you talked about the WFG, the World Financial Group. This is I'm familiar with. I never gotten involved in their company, but I was involved in the prepaid legal and Legal Shield company. And so I get it. The idea of leadership, business development, personal development, becoming a better human, learning how to sell, learning how to dress, learning how to show up for events, how you talk to people, how you follow up, your persistence. These are things that most of us never do. And what happens is, at least in my experience with multi-level marketing, was there's two different types of people. There's the people that have been in, a dozen of these, and, they're the successful ones because they've gained the skills and they've had enough experience to be successful. You talk about the 1%. And then there's everybody else. And everybody else kind of is, we're thrown in the ocean and we're told, all right, there's a great possibility. You have, your wildest dreams can come true, and it can happen, but good luck. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people can't thrive in that experience. And so for me, although I didn't make a lot of money in the network marketing, multi-level marketing field, I had great leadership. I had good mentors. I had people who came alongside me. I think of my mentor, Mr. A. Spare, who I wanted to be like. That so much that I took on the moniker Deuce, because if you're from Las Vegas and you've ever played poker, the ace is the first card in the deck. The deuce is the next card. It's like they're right next to each other. And it was something that it was my best way of showing honor and respect to this person who really helped me mature in a time where I was very immature and very green, as it were. But then you also talked about a couple things, talking about joining a mastermind group and this idea of paying for access, paying for speed. You could have read all the books. You could have gone to YouTube. You could have I remember Jeffrey Gitomer, he's got a ton of he's got DVDs that you could buy. There is a lot of recorded information. There's a lot of information online. He had an email newsletter. There's a ton of stuff that's, I'm not going to say free, but free or low cost. But it's a different story to put your check on the, to pay for that access, to pay for that speed. And that's something that, none of us, I think, want to. But if you're trying to get there faster and further, going to someone who's already proven it, that's the goal. That's what we're trying to build here with the Eagle's Wing, not just the podcast, but the academy. And we're going to talk a little bit later about the for-profit, because I'm excited about that side, because I'm a hardcore business guy, but I also understand that one of the key components of business, you got to have good people, and you got to have quality, skilled people. Mm-hmm. And you have to have a community or a culture that builds excellence. Mm-hmm. Now,
really quick, I want to just go back on that, because literally, like I said, the same when I met that gentleman from Ty Lopez's course and told him, thank you, you're one of the main reasons I'm here. Of course, yes, you have to be an action taker. You have to go out, you have to do it. But without a blueprint, you're running like a chicken with your head cut off, right? And now you have technology, AI, you can go to GPT and ask it to. And so to me, having I didn't have a GPT, you know what I mean, to go to on the sidelines and do that. And so it's become a lot more accessible. But of course, AI is not perfect. You know what I mean? There's nothing in that AI that could replicate 30, 40 years of living experience from these individuals that can pour into you. So to your point, it shifts. It's a spiritual thing too, right? Because it's when we're giving God a tithing or an offering, even Cain and Abel, my mentor told me this really good thing to look at. The problem wasn't that even Cain, he gave God an offering, but it was the difference between the first fruit offering, right? It was the best of what he could give. You know what I mean? And that's why God had favor over, on Abel, because it wasn't okay, here's the 10%, the scraps of, you know what I mean, I have left. It's it really stretched me to put in that much money too, because at the time I was like, I don't have this. But you have to be able to get yourself uncomfortable and stretch yourself and put yourself in those situations so that you can, eventually that. And then I did, from that, the value immediately I got from paying for it. And then I was able to, go on. And like I said, because of all this access, I don't think I would have as quickly been able to, especially in the time that everyone else is sinking, get up to one of the highest points of my career through that. You know what I mean? So, and a lot of it is, like I said, is because it shifted me and my understanding on so much, because a lot of clients I would talk to and I would say, oh, I built this system for you. And it was like, a funnel at the time. Funnels were big and they still are, right? But I would build them a funnel system, automate the marketing. And this was to me like a cutting edge, super innovative. And I needed to just get around the people that could see the value in that too, because too many of the people around me I was talking to, they barely had any money. You know what I mean? So it's like you have to get yourself, because the 5 people that surround you are who you eventually become, right? And so if you're surrounded by a bunch of people that don't have money, they're playing video games, you know what I mean? So that's who you eventually will become. But if you surround yourself with millionaires, you surround yourself with thought leaders, you start to take those, characteristics and things, and you become who you spend most time with. And so I truly got a chance to see that.
Spot on. Absolutely. Super important. Our relationships and our circle of influence. I believe that we should have somebody who's above us, that mentors us, that has the experience, that has done the thing, that in whatever it is that you want, say it's a good marriage, you don't find someone who's been divorced 5 times and is failing in their current marriage to go, hey, give me marriage advice. You don't go to the homeless guy and go, hey, give me financial advice. You don't go to the drug addict and talk about, hey, what's a good use of my money? You go to people that have what you want and you listen and you receive from them. And here's something that I am not the smartest and sharpest of people in the world, but I am able to recognize where I lack. And I am able to sit down, put my ego aside and listen, and then do the thing. So someone or God says to do something and puts it in your heart to move forward. Sometimes you just have to go, even though I don't know what I'm doing, even though I don't see the end, I'm told to go, from point A to point B. I don't understand the gap. I don't understand how I'm going to get from, it's like if I was standing on one cliffside and the goal was the next cliffside on the other side, and there's a big gap. Well, you got to figure it out. And that's the thing of a lot of people get stuck. They look at the thing and they go, oh, I don't know what to do. So they do nothing. Or worse, they do counterproductive things that actually hurt them. But you said one thing about when a mentor said that you're a genius. And it reminds me of the quote. Basically, it's if I say something good about myself or my company, of course I'm going to say it because I'm compensated. I'm biased. But if somebody else says it, it must be true. This is the power of the testimony. So for my business owners that are listening, utilize that power of the testimony. Say less about yourself and let others say more. And that's the proof. So moving forward, I want to get into this part is your faith, but your profile talks about pursuing your path with God's help as you strive to become an influential leader. How has your faith and spirituality guided you through the challenges of entrepreneurship and leadership?
Yeah, so I talk about it all the time. It's everything to me now, but definitely starting out my journey, I had no understanding, no recollection. I grew up in my family, my basis of anything was religion, right? It was, okay, my grandma at a very young age, I remember being young and the Jehovah's Witness would come over to her house because she was in a wheelchair, she couldn't go out. And so she kind of, was susceptible to, they were the big ones running the door-to-door kind of game at that time. So, and I remember just at a young age, like maybe 3-4 years old, already battling religion. Oh, Jesus wasn't crucified on a cross. He was crucified on a stake, and all these things, right? Where it's like they tried to already like attack the Bible and all these things. So honestly, yeah, growing up, I hated Jehovah's Witnesses. Like, I was like, you guys don't celebrate anything, because they think everything's pagan. And so, there's some substance in some of the things that they did, right? Because then I became very big into conspiracies and very big into like battling the Bible. Like, oh, well, because of that early thing, I was like, well, you guys don't even know what you believe. Jesus wasn't born on Christmas. And so I was one of those critical people that was like battling them and saying, you guys have a heresy religion. But I think, thank to God and mentors around me, right? And I saw some of these people and they were just so sold out to Christ. And I was like, well, I mean, yeah, Jesus is a cool guy. I remember I had some tattoos on my body, like Luke 23:34, before I even gave him my life. And his Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And to me, I was always like, okay, he's an OG, he's not like the actual God, right? I was like, he's an influential guy. And I think, I could always look up to him. And my dad had the same scripture, right? And so we had a little bit of faith ties early, but it was very religious and not truly understanding, cultivating a relationship. And then, ultimately through kind of just my trials and tribulations, I honestly, eventually, right before I think I honestly considered committing suicide at one point. I was around 19 at the time. I was just at a very low point, broken and, lost. I had so many things that, in a bad relationship, I literally got into a physical altercation, broke my nose, like so many things. I was just kind of crying out for help. I was still living this false life, this false identity. And that's when, God stepped in and I had actually had a spiritual encounter. Felt like, my soul left my body and I saw Christ, not in like a very, just like in a glorious sense, right? In the spirit. And it made sense to me at the time. I was like, oh, how do I get out of this situation? How do I, these things, and God had planted on my spirit. And it's just still to this day, I kind of scares me to say it out loud, but I've kind of come more to an understanding of it. But in the moment when I was like this like low point, I remember I was watching like a really good, I think it was on Arnold Schwarzenegger, and just kind of listening to his story and like was getting motivated, because I remember thinking like, man, this guy came from all these things. I'm sitting here feeling sorry for myself. I think it's good to get out of yourself a lot of the times, right? But one of his big messages was, hey, you need to think big. You need to believe in God. And he didn't say Christ, of course, at the time, but you have to have belief in something higher and bigger than you. And so that's when I was like, okay, God, like, you're real. I'm here. It was like a full, like, just a spiritual moment. Because, of course, like I've smoked weed and done stuff in the past. And during that time, I'm like, this was different. This spiritual, when I tell you that God came into me and I asked the question, how do I become one of the most influential people of my generation? That's like my spirit left my body and I saw Christ and everything made sense. I was like, of course, the most influential person that ever walked this earth, And still it was very logical based, right? But I think obviously like over time, like the acceptance, being baptized by the fire, the encounter, the initial, right? That I no one was around me to tell me and guide me through these things. I didn't have Christians around me saying, oh, you're being baptized by the Holy Spirit. You know what I mean? I was just like, what is happening to me? I'm becoming something new. am I accessing 100% of my brain? Is it, you know what I mean? I'm going through, is it the metaphysical stuff? Is it quantum physics? Like I'm turning over all these stones, trying to find all these answers. And that's, of course, the esoteric stuff's there for me, like, oh, your chakras. And so I got a little into the mystical realm a little bit, but I think kind of just like I said, having other mentors around me being like, no, it's Christ, it's Jesus. And, at the time I was kind of still like closely wrestling. I was living in Texas, my last kind of major door-to-door gig. And I was working with a lot of Mormon gentlemen because of course they're highly recruited because that's what they do, right? In their missionary field. And so then the door-to-door people were like, hey, why don't you want to make money doing this? So I didn't get obviously recruited from Mormons. I think it was just having door-to-door experience already. And I saw how much money some of these guys were making. So I was like, man, these guys can make this much money in a summer, like 3 months, you know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, let me do it. But man, it was brutal. You know what I mean? You're out there in Texas heat in the middle of the summer, working 8-hour days, no breaks. It cultivates character. But I remember at the time there was they were very like on me. What do you believe? Who do you believe in? And if you don't believe in something, then you stand for anything. Like it was challenging. It was good. I appreciated it. I knew I didn't believe in what they believed in, but I needed to start to asking those questions and be like, okay, God, I know you're real. I know you're tugging on me, but I want to know the real you. I don't want to know religion you. I don't want to know anything. And I think when I really opened myself up, that's when things started to kind of crack for me and everything started to make sense. Of course, the mentors around me, because I was very conspiratorial. I'm like, tell me about the pyramids. Tell me about, you know what I mean? Like there's no answers for this. And of course they could show me in the Bible where that was, but I didn't have anybody around me to show me that. I had these questions. And then, I also started attending Lakewood Church in Houston, Texas, which is Osteen's ministry. And, to me, I'm like, that's to see at a caliber, at a level. Of course, people are always going to cast stones and have something to say. But I think for me personally, to get in, to see that level caliber of operation, it stretched my faith really, because I'm like, wow, these people already have problems with all these, Southern pastors and making all this money. And I was like, no, this guy, what they do with the level of influence that they have, no wonder they're at this level. It's to me, it's like God will work through everybody, and you can call it whatever you want. Oh, it's baby food, whatever. That's fine. We still need that, and they still need that much people doing that much good work in the field. And Christians are, sorry, I'm going on a tangent rambling, but you know what I mean? Like, Christians are so quick to judge our own kind. It's like, that's not what, and so I love that God allowed me to have this very unique understanding and grow and cultivate my relationship with him, because I see he does want to use me, obviously, coming from that experience and him, showing me that, hey, I'm the way, the truth, and the life, that's always been anchored in me forever. So no matter how far off maybe I got from that anchor, I knew where the center was. I'm like, hey, no matter what I go through, I know I'm always going to remember that experience, that spiritual encounter, getting baptized by the fire, kind of like Paul on the road to Damascus. It wasn't at a church, it wasn't a priest, or, you know what I mean?
On the road, yeah.
Yeah, it was just like, I'm here, I'm crying out to you, Lord, and you take me, and I think that's where God will meet you the strongest, the most. And so I had a really amazing time to like walk very closely with the Lord. I still do, right? But it's like, I remember in those like when you very first, wake up and kind of open your eyes, you're like, what have I been living, this whole lie and all these things. And so it was just a blessing that God's, allowed me, like I said, to kind of go through this interesting journey. So now I can talk to, Mormon brothers, I can talk to, Jehovah's Witness, you know what I mean? Because it's like I've been through some of these paths and these tracks and kind of had those questions and seen how God's story has permeated and how the enemy has tried to take that in so many different spin-offs. And I'm just like, wow, God, like to me that confirms more how real and true you are and what you did.
Yeah, a couple of things that you talked about in this journey. Spirituality is a major point in the Eagle's Wing. I believe that spirituality, if the 5 major areas that we talk and we teach about is a dartboard, if you can imagine a dartboard, spirituality is the board. Like it is the substance, because as humans, we are mind, body, and spirit. Is your mind the brain and the actual cells and the pieces that make up your mind? Well, how does that make up, personality and kind of our thoughts and all these different things, and creativity and kind of who we become? But then we got this idea of the soul, the emotions, the feelings. Where did that come from? Where's that? They say it's the heart, but is it like the actual heart organ? Is it some other organ? I believe that our essence of who we are is a spirit. And yes, we are inside a mortal body. And if anyone remembers the Ecclesiastes, review that I did, Solomon went heavily into this idea of we are dying. Death is coming for all of us. And what we do with it is it's this current reality, this current life, this current body will die, but the spirit lives on. Its spirit is eternal. And there's a great album that I used to love listening to, the Black Eyed Peas, the End album, The Energy Never Dies. Mm-hmm. And the idea, in my early days, that was like a spiritual, like a lot of the stuff. I don't imagine that they were trying to speak gospel in their music, but I received it that way. And I went, yeah, the energy never dies, and our spirit continues. And you talked about a couple things about religion. And yes, religion is death. A religion is set of rules that man has used and continues to use to this day, control over other men. And the reality is, if God wanted religion, he would simply control everything that we do. There'd be no free will. There would be no option. But because we have free will and we can choose, you can follow or not. You can live for him or live for yourself, live for the world, however you want to call it. But that's religion. And that's why I think it's death. And when I talk about spirituality or spiritual as one of the key components, major areas, the spirit seeks to connect. It's like water. Like when water touches other water, it becomes together. It's drawn together. And I think that we are drawn to God. We are drawn to that spiritual force. It's like electricity connecting. And the other thing is it's semantics versus substance. So you talked about, this whole thing of like the Jehovah's Witnesses, everything's pagan and we're going to take one verse out of the Bible and we're going to explain it in this way. Or the Mormons where they're like, yeah, the Bible's good, but we got this remix. We got this other thing that allows us to do all these things. And,
the remix.
And the challenge is, for me, I'm not here to tell anybody what spirituality or what they should believe, but I believe that we all need something, and faith is belief in something bigger than ourselves, that's outside of ourselves. And so I personally, I'm Christian, and I've got no shame in that. I tell people, that's what I believe. My goal is not to make anybody believe what I believe or to force it upon him, but to go, this is what I believe. I'm happy to talk about it. I'm happy to give a reason. As Paul talked about, he said, have a reason for your belief. But I think that if we all have something that we can go to, it's like that, like you talked about that experience of being so low in mortality, willing to end it. To me, that is that's a place where having something or someone, in my case, in your case, it's Jesus Christ. It's the ability to reach out, to cry out to God. And to your point, in the early days, when we are baby Christians, I use the quotes in that, it's just like when we're physically born, when we're toddlers and we're newborns, we need constant attention from our parents. If we don't, we will die. It's just a matter, like you can't just drop a baby off in the woods and go, good luck. It will die. But the challenge is, the maturity is when we give our children a little bit more space, and then eventually we get mature. It's not that we don't need our parents or we don't need God, but we have less of a reliance on every step. And in some ways this is good, because I think that as a parent, I don't want to always have to hover over my children, telling them, clean up your room, pick that trash up, wash your clothes, put your clothes away. To me, if they're able to live and operate as mature adults without me, I did a good job. And I think our Father in heaven, he desires us for maturity. And sometimes as we mature and we kind of get further along in the process, a lot of times people, they say, where is God? I can't feel him. I don't see his presence. I don't, he feels far from me. But it's like, if you're capable and you are mature and you're ready, he can be trusted on that. It's an interesting.
No, I just want to say, because that to me was one of the big things. I have my old notes when I was very first going through all this, and it's like pages and pages on my phone. But one of the big things, to your point, I talked about that was maturity. And I was like, to me, maturity is just being who you see yourself being now. Right. So I think at the time I had this vision like, when I turn 30, I want to be here. When I turn 40, I want, you know what I mean? When I was going through that encounter and like how like my mind was racing on all these possibilities. But then also I understood, like you said, but act as if now, right? Be that 30-year-old version of you now. And so that's where the shift came in, because then, okay, I am that person. That is the reality I'm walking into. Of course, there's more metaphysical stuff, but at the time, right, that was into that. And so, but this is to your point. It's like, the Bible is full of it in the sense of how God calls us. He's like, pray without ceasing, ask and it shall be given to you. Right. And so it's like, I kind of a bit of a debate, but I do see a lot of how God talks in the Bible and is using a lot of these things, like the law of attraction, all these other little things, right? They take from the Bible, and this part is like, hey, you're not going to go to God and keep asking and asking and asking, because then it's showing that you don't believe. You know what I mean? You ask, and then you have certainty that he's working on it on your behalf, and it's going to come the way that maybe that you envision, but it's the way that he it's what you need ultimately, because God is a gracious God. He's better. And, you're not going to go to him, ask him for one thing. And you know what I mean? So the Bible is littered with all these things. And so, yeah, to your point, sorry, I want to tangent again, but the maturity thing is really just being that, seeing that version of what you want and being it now.
Yeah, and that's something, you talk about that idea of who I want to be, I need to act as if. Now, a lot of the things into the personal development and self-help and metaphysics and, law of attraction, and there's a lot of things. The original and best personal development is the Bible. Mm-hmm. And that's something, I did the Proverb series, a proverb a day. If you read a proverb a day or have it read, listen to the Proverbs I've already read to you. If you don't want to read, plug it in your ear and go on a walk. It's 5 to 15 minutes, depending on the day. And otherwise, read it yourself. Read it to yourself aloud. But you can't seek wisdom and not find it. And one of the things that, reminds me of is there's a Psalm, I believe it's 72, where David is praying for Solomon, his son. And it's weird because, I've read the Bible through multiple times. I mean, in my Christian walk, I don't know how many, 1 year Bible reading plans where you just, and countless sermons and events and, all different kinds. But I'm in my 1 year Bible reading plan for this year. And I got to, I think it was Psalm 72, and it was like a psalm for Solomon. And I'm going, weird. Because I'm doing this, the Lord has been bringing me in a lot of study and review in the life of Solomon and the wisdom. And it's just it's speaking to me in a new and exciting way. It's incredible. And I think that's because I'm acting out in the thing that he has me to do. And he's giving me the substance to do it. But in the case of David, this is while David is still king, he's writing the psalm about his son who will become king. But in the psalm for Solomon, he talks about all these things that Solomon is going to do. Solomon is going to get, in front of kings and he's going to be in front of Seba and Sheba. And one of the things, if you read in Kings, the queen of Sheba comes to Solomon for wisdom and knowledge and understanding, just like we talked about earlier, the idea of paying for access and speed, came to him and was like, look, I'm going to give you, 120 pounds of gold or it was some ungodly amount. It was this amazing, all these spices, all these, gifts. Help me, teach me, guide me. And so, but it's amazing that it was spoken over him and then it happened. I'm reading it and I'm going, oh, this is like telling the end of the story before it even happened. And then that was something interesting. So it goes to exactly your point of I have to see myself and I have to see myself successful and I have to speak and I have to do and I have to be that person. And then I cannot help but speak and act and be that person. Mm-hmm. And to your point about prayer, it's not a matter of going to God constantly for the same thing. Jesus talks about, in one of his parables, he talks about a woman who goes to a corrupt judge and cries out to him continually, justice, I need justice, give me justice, give me justice. And the judge is like, finally, I'll do it. Because it sometimes we have to have persistence. We have to keep seeking the thing. But also to your point, maturity, it's not, God, give me my selfish ambition, give me what I want. It's, I'm becoming so much like Christ. I'm modeling myself. I'm molding myself in that pattern that I want what God wants. Mm-hmm. And if I want what God wants, and I ask God for the thing that God wants, what's the possibility of God giving me the thing that he wants? That there's, I believe it's a psalm where it talks about
the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want.
Yes, but that the Father gives us the desires of our heart. Two parts to that. One is, yes, he gives us that desire. It's like an internal, it's like a thought or a meditation, like, oh, I'd really like the green Kia Soul. And before I owned the green Kia Soul, there was a time where it ruminated and I thought about it and I dreamed about it and I had a goal for it. And it was like, this is something. And then it became the thing. So I first had the desire of the heart. But then later I was given the substance. So God gives you the desire, but then he also gives you the substance, the actual thing. So that's very, very cool. And I'm glad that you went into kind of your origin story. We all have our faith story of how we got to where we believe, and it's a powerful experience. And for those that have not sought actual relationship, it's simple. It's talk to Jesus like you would if he's sitting right next to you. Give him your fears. Give him your doubts. Give him your anger, your frustration, your sins, your mistakes, your loves, your joys, everything. Just pour it all out and see what he does. Now, if you ask, you will receive. What people don't do is they don't ask. They intellectually reason it away. But you can't have relationship with somebody and then deny them. Like, I can't be like, Tony's not here in the room with me. I don't care. I don't believe him. I don't believe he's here. He doesn't exist. That's not relationship. Relationship is, it's acknowledging we have that back and forth. But here's the thing. You have to be quiet long enough to hear the response. Because that's something a lot of times, like in my prayer life, I'm like shotgun, boom, 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 or machine gun to, prayers to God. But then I'm just run into whatever my life is, whatever I've got going. Sometimes we just need to be calm, be quiet, and listen. Sometimes the voice comes from within. Sometimes it's a friend who gives us, the exact answer, the thing that we were praying for. Maybe it's a television commercial or a podcast or an audio or a video or some kind of, God can speak in a miraculous way. You just have to be open to receive that. So you gained the hands-on marketing and sales experience as a teenager and became an insurance agent by 18. Tremendous. Like the process, a lot of people can't accomplish that. They can't get the license. They can't get started at 18. That is absolutely impressive. And I just want to just state that. But what key lessons from those early roles have carried over into how you led and grow your business today? How does that affect you now?
Yeah, I think even before that, going back to the gamer days, because now it's so prevalent. Kids can make millions of dollars playing video games. Not everyone still, right? It's a top 1% of entertainers that can even make a living or exuberant amount. So for me, I don't know, I guess just a mixture of sports and video games, honestly. And people will be like, oh, do video games really help kids? But it's like, if you allow it to, yeah, because I can sit at my computer and completely lose my sense of self and immerse myself in the task that I'm handling because I love what I'm doing, right? And I learned that initially from video games. So how else could a kid sit in front of a TV for 5 hours, no food, no bathroom break, just completely, you know what I mean? It's more spiritual than we ever give us credit. And I think kids are searching for that flow state, right? That constant ability where it's like, hey, I'm stepping on, whether they're smoking weed, playing video, you know what I mean? They're finding these quick fixes for it. And, ultimately, like for me, like that's kind of what I've seen now. And hey, I can pour all of myself into, if I have a client, I'm building them a new website, or, you know what I mean? All these things, you get it, right? You can put you into it and really like, okay, I'm walking away happy to see something that I just was a thought, an idea that came from nothing, and I created it into something, right? I think for me, right, it was, I've found a way to kind of take some of those early skills and those learnings and form it around something that I truly find joy and passion in, right? If I can come, like for instance, I'm working with nonprofits right now, yours and other ones, and doing fundraisers, right? Like this is not easy work, but it's so fulfilling because then, every dollar that I know, for instance, the one I'm doing in Southeast Asia, every dollar we raise is getting like 10 meals. And these kids, every 10 seconds, a child is dying from starvation in these areas. So, it's like, I'm going to, of course, like to me, it's a God thing because it's like, he will meet your desire. I have a desire. I want to help. I want to serve. But then he'll give me a supernatural ability to where I'll spend 5-6 hours on something and just be like, whoa, where did the time go? You know what I mean? And see the product of what he did through me. And that's what I feel like so many kids are searching for today is like, if you put your mind to it and you give yourself the ability, You can create, especially with AI, you can create so many unlimited things now. You just have to have a little bit of grit and say, okay, this didn't work, let me try that. You know what I mean? The constant, like Einstein method, you know, like, or Edison, you know, like, okay, I found 100 ways to not make a light bulb, you know, having that
10,000. Wait, could you imagine just continuing? No, but exactly what you talked about, this idea of, and I'm a big gamer as well. You know, it's just kind of my upbringing. It's something that I enjoy, and I find myself able to grind away on that thing. Whereas in life, it's kind of like sometimes I have to like force myself to do the thing. I'm kind of speaking future vision for Eagle's Wing is I want to be able to eventually create an app that gamifies making our lives better. It's the idea of what can I do daily that's going to help future me tremendously. And my initial thoughts currently are, you know, it's carve off 1 hour. Currently, I'll give you kind of a glimpse into my process. Generally, what I like to do is when I wake up in the morning, you know, I've got to get my wife to work. You know, we only have one car currently, but I drive her to work. You know, make her coffee, make her lunch, get her together, get her to work, come home. Then have to wake up my daughter. She's in middle school currently. She's in 8th grade, and so got to get her up and ready. While she's getting ready to go to school, I pull out my 1 Year Bible reading app on the phone. I read the 3 chapters, or it's 5 to 10 minutes. It really is not a lot of time. I read the 1 Year Bible reading plan, and it's great. It's right there on the phone. Generally, by the time I finish, my daughter is ready, and then I drive her to school. You know, yeah, I could make her walk to school. I mean, it's a 5-minute walk. But I like to have that experience to kind of set her day. And, you know, she's gotten to a point where she's becoming a little more independent, and dad's not cool, and she doesn't want to hug or kiss, and she doesn't, and it's like, oh man, you know, it's kind of like this downward thing of becoming a teenager. I remember when she like started to refuse to wear the pretty dress, like every dress is ugly, and she wants to, and it's just like, oh, where's my little girl? But this is part of the maturity. But I take her to school, and, you know, I'll joke around with her a little bit, talk, you know, about what's going on. Then I make sure I tell her that I love her and have a good day, and kind of prep her and give her that motivation, like, hey, do your work, follow through. You're only here. It's gonna end real soon. And I mean, we're close. It's another month or so. And then she's gonna be done with middle school and into high school. And so then after I come home, generally, I'm currently reading Rick Warren's Purpose-Driven Life book.
Great book.
And, you know, I read that chapter. It's, you know, 4 to 6 pages for that day. And after that, I get on with my day with whatever I have. It's either recording podcasts or doing, you know, media work or making phone calls, whatever it is. But the challenge is, if you were to focus 1 hour a day on things that benefit you in the future, eventually it is going to catch up. Now, it would be better for me to go spend 10 hours a day on personal development and doing things that benefit you. Well, yes, it would be, but not everybody can do that. But I think everybody can carve off 1 hour. Scroll less on your phone, go less to YouTube shorts or videos or video gaming. Here's the thing, I'm not telling you not to have those things, but make sure that you feed yourself first and then do that thing. Same thing with, you know, with work is like when you're at work hard, succeed, excel, and be the best that you can. Because when you're off, you need to, you know, leave everything at the office, leave your mind, leave that there, and be fully in your rest and relaxation. You know, how terrible would it be to spend 9 months of your working month or working year thinking about that vacation? Oh, I'm going to go to Hawaii and it's going to be great. I'm going to be on the sand and the beach, and I'm going to drink this drink with the little, you know, umbrella and all this stuff. And that's all you're thinking that whole time. And then you finally go, and then you're on the beach in Hawaii and you're thinking about the office and the emails and your customers, and just, we've got it backwards. When we're at work, we've got to work. And when we're at play, we got to play. And regardless of where we are, you got to be fully engaged. Moving forward, just great interview so far. I'm really learning a lot and enjoying this time. Empowering marginalized communities through financial literacy and home ownership is a big part of your mission. Can you share a story when your work made a tangible impact on someone's life or a community you serve? Can you talk about your mission to Chile?
Yeah, a couple. So like my first mission trip I took was to India. I think that's what kind of opened the envelope for me. Just being in a country, of course, I mean, anybody that's ever been to India, I was in Mumbai. Mumbai, has, sad to say, but it's true. It's the largest slums in all of Asia. The city is just so fascinating. I mean, you don't even know how it's like organized chaos. It's the craziest. I think everybody should go. Honestly, I'm like a big India fan, because it will give you it's one of those things where it'll give you enough of a culture shock, right? Being in those Asian countries, the magnitude of people, right? Billions of people, like you see it, you feel it, but then just an appreciation for what we have here versus, there. Because there's one thing, and when you even go to these other countries, you might do touristy stuff, which I did. I went to India the first time, kind of stuck in the more touristy things, visited, still saw depravity and whatnot, but then when I went back like 100 days later with the missions team, which, technically we're not even allowed to do. So, we have to be careful about how that's talked about. I won't share anything else other than that, but at least the group that I was working with, because, this was allowing me to see a whole new realm of India, right? Because they don't want people going over there and converting, which is not what we're doing. We're not literally going door to door, knocking, you know what I mean? That's not what we're doing. We're going to the churches that are already there existing, right? Like the underground churches, or it's not illegal to be a Christian there, right? But it's just like in these areas where they are, it's like in the slums, right? So we do go to these red light districts, and we go to just these, it's so sad because it's like, this is real. This is happening. This is how these people livelihoods are, I'll see. Even on the side of the road when we were in the slums area, there's like a family of 10 people all living there because India's interesting. They have a government came, they had a house at one point, they can tear your house down. So many rules, right? Like just this caste system, right? That I got to see. And as much as the people are like, oh, it's not that, like it is a spiritual thing, right? It's so much as much as people don't want to say. And, I'm going on a tangent, but I think that to me, it stretched me so much again to see how big this world is, how much God is needed still on all faces of the earth. You know what I mean? I think here in the States, we live a very cushioned life, AC, water, you know what I mean? Like
Plumbing, yeah,
plumbing,
exactly.
so many things. Like you go to another country, you forget the finer things, and you start to appreciate a lot more. Even for me, like I had a big traffic problem. You go to India, you cure any problem that you have with traffic, because they're just like, okay, what am I complaining about? This is insane. I'll be stuck in not moving for an hour. You know what I mean? In those countries. And so
Cow walking across the street.
Cow, everything, it's just it's like a video game, literally being in there. You're like scared, like how does this all work? But it somehow does. And I think, that again, opened the envelope, kind of scratched my itch for this, because I was very entrepreneurial in mind. I needed this also, getting out there, experiencing the world, kind of visiting things. I mean, you look at Steve Jobs, like that's what he did, right? He went to India and then came back and built Apple. So I see a bit of that in my life too. Like kind of, there's a reason for when these people go and have these experiences. And to me, it's a spiritual thing, right? And so many of them do take it that way. And so I had a chance maybe a year later. I ended up going and studying abroad in Chile for 6 months. And then I also was working with a missions organization on the same team, right? Because it was a Southern Baptist convention. Because I'm not a big religious guy, right? But I understand as a business person, you do to have an organization, right? And money and all that flowing through. So I loved what they did as far as a nationwide kind of aspects, right? There's still some things in my heart that kind of my heart yearned, because for instance, I went to Chile and South America in general, right? It's considered a legacy thing to them at this point. So they like to mainly put more resources and focus towards the 10 by 30, I forget the window, right? Whatever, but it's like the 10 most like are like populated countries, right? And a lot of it's like in the Southeast Asia region, right? India, like Thailand, those areas. They put a lot more focus and resources. I think it's called the 10 by 30 window. I'll have to double check into that. But this allows them to see a lot more people coming to. But to me, it's like, hey, you can't forget about, because for instance, in South America, like it's you're either Catholic or you're not. You know what I mean? There's really no in between. And so to me, it's still very sad that I'm like, wow, there's still a massive need for even an evangelical type of, we're relationship based. It's there. It's just not prevalent, right? It's like very, very small in a lot of the countries, right? And I think it's just, it showed me like a need and a want and a desire to continue to do missions internationally, right? Because I love travel. I love to explore new parts of the world, but I also love to incorporate my spirituality and God with that, and I think to see him, for instance, when I went to Chile, I didn't know, nothing, you know what I mean? It's like sometimes God will make these decisions for you and then you see the fruits of it after. But within that time, they had the Pan America Games coming, which is like, almost like the Olympics, but just for the Americas. They had their 50th anniversary for the dictatorship that took place there. And so I got to learn so much about the culture, the history, just so much things, right? Like I didn't plan that they were having the 50th anniversary. You know what I mean? All these things the same year I was going in the same exact time, but God does, right? He allows, because we have that heart and that desire to see him work through these things. And through that time there, I think by far that has shifted me the most in my life. I mean, because it's full immersion, 6 months, that's like my second home. You know what I mean? Like it'll always be in my heart. Anytime I go back, I have a homestay mom I can stay with, I have friends, just a community out there, I think. And that showed me even a further thing. Cause I spent 2 weeks in India and then came back for 100 days and another 2 weeks, so about a month. And I'm like, oh, that's a long time. You know what I mean? And then going 6 months, I'm like, even, you know what I mean? And I see these other teams that are 2, 3, some people are lifelong, it's like, wow, I'm like, I don't know if I can just commit fully yet, but to see how God's stretching me, maybe I go for a year one, which I do. I want to go to Spain and I want to spend, so I have so many things where God's like putting it, because I have that heart and that desire, and God's now bringing me into places I would have never thought, being in countries where it's like a 50th year anniversary. You're pretty much watching the Pan America Olympic Games, all these cool things where I was like, got this amazing experience that I didn't ask for. I just said, hey God, I have a heart, I want to do this, and he will reward you. You know what I mean? And so, yeah, I went to Easter Island, even to like the most remote island in the entire world. Like I learned so much. I got to do such cool things at the same time. Right. And so, but that was a big spiritual journey for me, because when I was a young boy and I went to Mexico when I was very little, I was abused. And so of course, like that kind of disdained a lot of my journey and my path, early phases, because now for anybody that's been abused, you walk with that for your life. You know what I mean? It's not something that just kind of, okay, it's, chapter, like it is a lifelong thing you live with, but the power of God and Christ to kind of overcome that and to go to, a place that I could feel welcomed and loved and home, and kind of forget some of those past traumas and things that I went through. The whole thing was spiritual for me. You know what I mean? And, I messed up. I did totally thing. Like I even reverted back a little bit. I kind of started being around people that I shouldn't have been, because I didn't have the church community around me 24/7. And I learned that too. Like there's a reason God sends us out in pairs and twos and do these things, right? I went out alone and I thought, oh, I got it, God, I'm good. And I did have a great experience, but there was times where I felt very far away from God, but it was because I was, going out to clubs at night, dancing with a girl, doing things that I was just like, I'm not this person anymore. Why am I reverting back? Why am I allowing? And to me, so that showed me so much more too. It doesn't matter how far in your relationship with God you look at any of these big pastors. You are human. You have the chance to fall, right? That's what the Bible says. Don't get too bold in thinking that you're not going to fall. And that's what happened to me. I tripped up a couple of times, made some mistakes out there, but if you have the heart and repentance, God restores that. And to me, it was more like I'm doing this to myself at this point, right? I'm hurting me, and it's not God at this point. And so I need to kind of repent, go back, run to him. But again, I think it was also because I was going through such a tumultuous time of like kind of forgetting my traumatic past. I indulged almost overly, right? Where it's like, oh, well, let me do these things that I probably wouldn't have normally done to forget about that stuff, which is not healthy. You know what I mean? It's kind of like then greed and lust and all these things. It's just like you run wild and rampant, and God's like, hey, I'm still here. I'm not running, but it's like, even for me, I'm like, okay, like, this is why missionaries should not go out by themselves. They need to be with another person that's holding, you know what I mean? And so many things that I got a chance to learn, and just thank God that I'm still here, and he's allowed me to even, early, like this was like a year ago that I was doing this, right? And so I baptized myself to Christ when I was 21, 25, 4 years, 5 years of being like a Christian. I was solid, not even giving my body up, right? I was celibate for a long time. And then of course I went there. I like I said, it was hurtful because it was like, man, I was doing so good, and I was doing these things, and it was, when I went there, got lost in the sauce, got caught up in whatever, right? And then it hurt. It started to kind of be like, oh, like, dang, God, I have to, but God will meet you in those places and say, look, even though you're a sinner and you're doing these things that I want you to do, I still love you. I'm going to give you the way out and the guidance. And so, ultimately, it's not like I was going on bingers and, doing all these things. It was just the few mistakes that I was making. I was like, okay, God, I can't keep making these mistakes. I think once the old, like you said, maturity, the more you get in your walk, your spirit's just like, come on, guy, what are you doing? You know what I mean? Like we've already overcame this. We're not going out to, clubs at night and hanging out with people we don't need to be around. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I don't know. I just sometimes get lost in that. Like, oh, well, I'm going to have a good time, and I can be a Christian and be in these environments. And it's like, I think that's the trap the enemy tries to put on us too, right? It's like the music you're listening to, the ambiance, the mindsets of the other people. Like, you pick up and you feed into the environment is so much, right? And so we as though we try to be like, oh no, like I'm good, I'll be okay. It's too easy. It's way too easy to get tripped up, and so you have to constantly stay on guard. And so I really got a chance to learn that. So
that absolutely, and one of the things that you touched upon this, it's just like in life, darkness is pushed out by the light, and as long as the intensity is there, the light and the purpose is there, it pushes out the darkness. But it's literally crouching at the outer edge, waiting to take over. And as soon as we allow ourselves a little bit, it tends to grow and to become big. And so one of the things that it's like you said, it's going out in pairs and having somebody to run with you, regardless if you're on a missions trip, if you're in business, if you're at work, having that relationship where you keep each other honest. It's like if you travel and you go to a conference. Well, if you go with another married man and you share a hotel room, the chances of you committing adultery on your wife are less, because you've got this guy and you look out for one another. And the thing about it is, we need that. We need accountability. But if it's just you, well, it's easy to fall into that. So I'm glad that you talked about that. And services, so important. We have to have something. And I want to mention two quick things. One is the idea that we have these hurts and these pains. In another podcast, I went into this idea of health and healing, and that's why it's so important. And that's why I have partnered with Tim Rowland in the Heart Freedom Ministry, because he has a similar testimony. And you can read his book and you can read his testimony about being in Mexico and being abused and how it harmed him into adulthood. And it wasn't until he went through this process of heart freedom to forgive and to restore and to revisit that time as a man covered in the blood of Christ, in the love of God. Being sometimes we get stuck in that thing, or we don't even know that it's affecting us into the future, but it is either subconsciously or even consciously. Like, we can think about the words that are spoken over us, or, the experiences. And so it's so important that we have that healing. And that's, and just everybody listening, it's not just me telling you these things. I don't want to call it normal to be abused or to have negative. We're all broken. Mm-hmm. We've all failed, and we failed others, and others have failed us. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, coming back to religion, people get hurt in a church. Mm-hmm. They get hurt by somebody in authority, and that's not God's will for you. That's not God's plan or desire. God didn't cause them to hurt you. God was not the one who hurt you. But we must realize, as we live in a fallen, oftentimes evil, sinful, and wicked world, where there are evil people. And so I don't want to make excuses for what they've done, and I don't want to minimize or sweep it under the rug. But we have to find a way to work through it and to maximize, because the future that God has for you is so much greater than the sum of your past. Your past does not determine your future. And so I'm hoping to interview Pastor Tim soon so he can talk more about it. But heart freedom is absolutely essential, because if you don't deal with the hurts from yesterday, they're gonna repeat into tomorrow, and you're too valuable to let it happen and to let it affect you. And the other thing is there's a book called The Monk and the Merchant. Mm-hmm. And this is a story of a guy he's torn between two worlds. Do I become a monk, or, a religious leader, a pastor, a rabbi, a synagogue leader, whatever you want to call it? Do I become the monk and serve God and do God's will in the faith and the ministry? Or do I become a merchant, a businessman? And, and he's torn in this story. And he's like, oh, I really like business. But isn't business worldly, and isn't it evil to want money and to have these like natural desires? But maybe I should be the monk, and it goes back and forth. But the moral of the story is, we have people that are supposed to be in the ministry, and we're supposed to have people that are for business and the world, the marketplace. If you're a business owner, you have been given and you've been blessed. Your job, part of your ministry, is to give to that church, to that leader, to fund the thing. I think that everybody should tithe. Everyone should at least give 10%, starting at the baseline, regardless of where you are financially in the baby steps. You should give 10% of your income. One, it shows that you trust God with your money. And if you don't belong to a church, or you don't belong to a spiritual organization, I'm not telling you have to, but give it to a charity. Give somewhere that you can feel good that you've put your time. Be it the animal shelter, that doesn't kill dogs and cats. If you love dogs and cats, give them 10% of your income. I promise you, they will be happy to receive any help that you give it to cancer research, or St. Jude's Children's Hospital, or the local homeless food bank, the United Way. There's tons of but if you're a part of a local church and you go there, you worship there, you receive there, you grow there, yes, your tithe should help fund and to keep that thing going. And if everybody just gave 10%, there would be zero need in our churches. The fact is, most people don't tithe, and there's a number of reasons people say, but just do it. And the thing about it is, you could live off of less than you earn if you choose to. You can schedule your time better if you choose to. You could grow and get a degree if you choose to. You could also be homeless if you choose to, or drug addicted, or in all kinds of sexual, pornography and adultery and any number of things. It's choices that we make. And so a lot of times we must choose. But Tony, I believe to your point, you have an ability to create wealth. You have an ability to create a wealth that is beyond a normal person, is going to make $1 million over their 40-year working life. You could make that in 1 year. Imagine if you could make that in 1 year, if you could make it in 1 month. And what could you do That's where I believe that if we truly open up our hands and say, all right, God, I am capable and I am willing and I'm your vessel. It's like, put that lightning in my hands. Like if you tell me what to do with it, you put $1 million in my hand and you tell me to give it over here, boom. If you have that kind of desire, I think God will definitely bless you and to move you.
Yeah, just one thing I want to say on that, like one of my favorite, because you brought it up earlier, some of the thought leaders in the MLM. So my favorite, he's not a direct mentor, but I consider him a mentor of mine, Jim Rohn. It's my favorite saying: if somebody hands you $1 million, best you become a millionaire. And I think that's ultimately right. It's so simple. And that's why I love him. He has those simple sayings, but they're so deep. But understanding, like, there's a reason why there's a 1% in this world, right? They've indebted us, they've enslaved us into the system, and the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. A lot of it is mindset. You know what I mean? I think it's ultimately is yes, of course, knowing what to do with it when, but ultimately it's just, that's the difference, right? It's who they become. Millionaires gain $1 million and lose $1 million. But they are still who their identity and that's why they're able to make it all over again, because they have the skills, you know what I mean? So the amount and what you're given is literally more important than what you do and who you become from that. And to me, even, I don't know if we'll get to it, but the previous startup that I had, that was the biggest lesson ultimately that I had is, I raised $300,000, had a $3 million valuation. Great. But who did I become? And now through that and going through that process, having disputes, losing whatever, right? Walking away from it. Who did I become through that? How am I seen after this? Where is God taking me now from this into glory, right? Because if he could do that with that, now what he can do so much more. And so, to your point, like, yes, that all comes into a precipice,
The pinnacle.
Yes, that's
absolutely. And I don't want to talk about business. I definitely want to get into this. But yeah, Jim Rohn is an incredible personal development guru, the OG. But he's sneaky. He's teaching you the Bible, but he's not hitting you with the Bible and going, and Mark 14:9 says, no, he just tells you and he gives you. This is why biblical and in Proverbs it talks about skillful and godly wisdom. It is all there. We just have to follow it. And so even if you aren't religious and you aren't, say, a Christian, you can still read the Word of God. You can still read the Bible as like you would read a textbook, and its principles will help you. So even if you're at a point, and a lot of times I find that the reason people aren't spiritual or they don't have a relationship with Christ, they had a bad experience at a church. They had some kind of physical, sexual abuse in the church. They had somebody who in their zeal told them something that was hurtful and it affected them, and they attributed to God the evil or the malice of man. And the reality is God is so much bigger. But here's the thing, even if you're in the doubt, Thomas had doubt, and like, it's a crazy story. After the resurrection, he's going on several verses talking about how I won't believe it. No, there's no way until I see him and put my hands in his wounds, in his wrists, right? I won't believe. And I'm like, man, that's like, this is a guy who on the daily had relationship and was with Christ. Several people were like, yeah, he resurrected. And he's going, nope, I doubt, I don't believe. But then Jesus shows up and goes, hey, Thomas, I know what you said. I know your spirit. Here you go. Here's my wrist. Here I am. And it's sometimes, even in our doubt, even in our worst, I'm not trying to convert you and make you like me. I'm not trying to proselytize you. I'm just trying to say, you could read a proverb a day, gain wisdom, and it can benefit you before you step to the cross. Here, and my testimony is, I grew up in a religious household. We were Lutherans. We went to church every Sunday, and I went through catechism and all that stuff, and was an altar boy, and it was just a grind and a thing that we did on Sundays. My dad especially was into it, but it never was anything but religion to me. But it was as an adult when I got into business that I had a group of men, mentors, businessmen they had a business God's way, a Wednesday night Bible study, and I went to it. And it was through that Bible study and through these godly men who showed me what it was to be a real man. Because I had a lot of toxic mentors or men in my life that were like telling me to do all the wrong and stupid things. But these were guys that was like, major company owners. One man owned a pharmacy, was a pharmacist, just incredibly intelligent, but through that brought me to the cross and through the blood. Mm-hmm. And so I'm not a person to tell you kind of I'll point to the cross and go, that's the way, the truth, and the life is through the cross. Amen. But we all get there in a different way. And so if it's through business, if it's through wisdom, if it's through your life can be transformed before you, now obviously give your life to Christ before, obviously that to me is the best thing. It's the Great Commission. But even if you're not ready, and I understand, we all have hurts, we all are broken. We've already talked about that. Even though you don't believe in the eternal, you can still get the practical and you can still benefit. So I want to say that, but this is this conversation has been incredible. We're a little bit over, but I'm about to keep going.
Yeah.
Because business, and this is something that I've been wanting to get into. Like this is building. It's like a wave turning into a tsunami. And so Tony, you've stepped into the tech innovation with ventures like Replicate and AI-powered voice assistants in sales. What inspired you to blend technology with your entrepreneurial ventures? And how do you see AI and other innovations transforming industries, such as the skilled trades?
Yeah. So going back, I've always been a bit of an early adopter, I'd like to say. I didn't learn how to code when I started learning digital marketing back in 2019 heavily. It started with just, social media. I kind of knew some tips and tricks on how to get followers and likes. Eventually that had to kind of grow into a more advanced skill set that businesses wanted an ROI. Like, hey, I'm not just paying you to get likes on page. I want money, So I had to learn things like SEO, advertising as more so where I saw the needle driving up for a business and saying, hey, I can immediately show if you run this ad, this dollar goes, you know what I mean? So I think that helped me but I had to learn with others, right? I had to be in these masterminds. Really a lot of help I got too early on was from one of the largest marketing agencies in the world. And I had a job there. And so I was working as business development. And I got a chance to really see at a high caliber what it really took to take a business and get them results at the end of the day. Because that was their biggest thing, is results-based marketing. And I got, and like anything, people are classically stuck on, I had an SEO guy tell me they're going to do something and a year, nothing, you know what I mean? Like our industry was riddled with lazy people that just didn't do any work. And so you kind of had to fight that uphill battle. And ultimately, I think that's where my fascination and love for technology always came, because I didn't need to be a guru or an expert on coding, which at the time, you don't even need to do that now with AI, right? But at the time, it's still heavy code focused, not a lot of no code tools. And early, I try to be an early adapter to that. So whether it was Zapier, Integromat at the time, which is now Make, an app I love, Go High Level, that's like a no code HubSpot type of builder. So my mind was, that's why I love Steve Jobs. I look up to him so much, because my favorite saying of his, a condor is actually the most efficient animal on the planet when it comes to movement. But if you give a human a bike, that human now becomes the most, in efficient on Earth. And so for me, a tool, right? You get just a tool to be able to see the caliber of how man has created so many amazing things. And so to me, it's like I can take my phone, the same thing that other people just look at memes and share things, and I, with that same device, can make $1 million with it. You know what I mean? So it's like how it's being used. Tools have always, at this point now, since the wheel, right, have always become a core and making us, and I think that's why humans also kind of get caught up on going on a tangent, but going into where AI is, right? That's the problem, I think, with AI is there's too much. It's turned into, I think the long term, there's not, people are under evaluating how significant AI is going to, it's literally going to be, like I told you, we're going to have our phone and an AI agent, which is like a little voice Jarvis, right? That is going to be one and the same. That's where it's going, but we're still in the infancy stage. And now everybody that's trying the stuff that's out there is just not, it's like anything, right? It's not quality. It's just kind of like, hey, let's get something out quick to make a quick bag off of people. And, you know, I think that's the problem with AI is like so many people are becoming jaded quickly and in this time, right? Because a year or 2 years ago, even back in 2019, when I was first learning about AI, and this was through ads, it was behavioral ads, right? It was analyzing behaviors and search intents on the website online. And I was able to take a very highly crafted audience and say, hey, you guys aren't just guessing who you're talking to people that are raising their hands and want your product, you know? So that was moving the needle so much. And now, you know, to see like, yes, I still incorporate all those skills and things to what I do now in my method, but it's how it's being presented and being repackaged now, right? Because everyone's an AI expert. Everybody, you know what I mean? And so it's like quickly a fun sandbox I was playing in has become very crowded. And so now, you know, thanks to God and just innovation, you know, even though like, you know, I lost my company recently in a way of just not seeing eye to eye with where it was moving. And now quickly, you know, in this new render, meeting people like yourself, you know, working with massive organizations already, seeing how quickly, you know, like these things were being held out in a sense, because it's also how I'm presenting it again, right? And repackaging it, because it's all the same thing, right? Of course, I'm using an agentic voice AI to kind of do a lot of the grunt work and have a human pick up where the AI can't. But, you know, of course, when I come into a business and tell them that, now I'm presenting it as, hey, you need an AI CRO, which is Chief Revenue Officer, you know, and so come in, whether you already have a current revenue officer or you don't, you know what I mean? So allowing them to have a product, right, that they can just plug into their business, show them the inefficiencies, kind of like take these things that I would do for businesses as a consultant and productize it. So then that way, eventually now, what we talked about is all these younger generations of these kids come in. Like I have another business like that I'm really going to do this with, right? So I'm helping their nonprofit, but they have an actual for-profit, and it's an aloe business for like, they have an aloe drink. Older couple, don't have a succession plan, like what we talked about. This blew my mind when we started doing more stats on this. Over half of the businesses in the United States, over half, have an owner that's 55 plus, right? Do you think that any of these people want to learn AI or want to? Only 30% of the half of the businesses in America, only 30% of them have a plan to pass it on for succession. 70% don't have a plan yet and are still in this limbo phase. And we have tens of thousands of people every single day retiring. So to your point, I get what you're saying. Now I'm seeing like where this massive emergence of the olds is meeting the new, and all these people that have the new, they just need technology. They just need, because AI is truly coming to, you know, help make industries more efficient, you know, have a lot of these things. So now I'm seeing, okay, I can just productize myself and what I would do and get handed over to, for instance, like this example of this business, a young guy, and he's 24, 25, and now he can come in. He doesn't really know much about technology, AI, but he can come in, utilize, you know, a skill, the people around him, a technology, right, to then bridge the gap and say, okay, hey, because most kids, they don't want to take over their parents' business. They are like, I was never into that. They see streamers and YouTubers. You know what I mean? They do what they want to do now. They're a lot more independent, but you still need to be having some sort of, you understand, as an adult, you have to be smart. You have to have a plan. And so now it's like, or if they don't have kids, right? Then to your point, we bring in these hungry entrepreneurs, right? And so I'm already seeing the blueprint for how this technology renaissance can be utilized in the right way. But it's also to your point, if we don't have the people there to catch this emergence, then we have a lot more problems than we need to really worry about. Because yeah, I don't think America could survive if even 10% of these businesses don't pass it on and it gets caught up in the court. You know what I mean?
So the reality is this is the opportunity. And so this is why I'm so excited about the for business side of what Eagle's Wing wants to do. Is the numbers are by 2035, 10 years from now, the baby boomer generation, those that were born after World War II, right? So people they went to war, they came back, they had a whole bunch of kids. Those kids grew up, have been working. By 2035, that generation will be out of the workforce. They've already started to retire now, but in 10 years, they're going to be completely out of the workforce, either because one, they don't want to work anymore, they want to retire. They've worked an entire lifetime and they're ready to stop, which at 65, 70 years old, yeah, I'd want to stop too and go and do the thing, whatever it is that they want to do. Or we're all going to die. I mean, this is the reality. So either they're going to age out, they're not going to want to work anymore, they're going to pass away. And what the statistics are, it's currently for the skilled trades, for every 8 people, skilled plumbers, electricians, truck drivers, mechanics, construction, skilled tradesmen that leave the workforce, either willfully or retire or die or whatever, for every 8 that leave, 1 replaces them. The number, it's suicidal for our country. And if something is not done, we are going to have a apocalyptic type of environment, because it's going to be something's going to happen. You're going to have some kind of emergency. Your pipe bursts in your wall and your house is filling up with water, and you call 50 plumbing companies to get help, and they all say, hey, we can get you in 3 weeks. And you're like, whoa, it's an emergency. I need this now. My house is flooding. It's filling up with water. Send somebody right now. I'll pay whatever it takes. Anything, I'll pay. I need it. And they stop you and they go, sir, don't you think that every other customer would pay anything? We just don't have the people. We can get you. Do you want us to come in 3 weeks or not? Otherwise, I got 5 other calls I got to take right now. And that's what the reality of what's going to happen. And so for one, the opportunity is for the people that see it now and that get the trade and get the skills, there's going to be absolute economic. We talk about, a golden age. What do you think that plumber who has that ability, they're not going to make $30, $40 an hour. They're going to make thousands of dollars. And the idea of, if you can build a business, you could make millions of dollars a year. And here's the thing, Eagle's Wing, one of the things that we want to promote is not just to get the skills to learn how to do the trade, but then to get working, to learn what it is to actually do the job, but then have a plan to do well financially. And then if your desire is to own a business, to partner you with a company, one of these people that are 55 years and older that go, man, 10 years from now, I don't want to work anymore. I want to be exited. That person who's young, that 24-year-old, could join that business, make an agreement, write a contract with them that says, look, I will buy your business for whatever, let's call it $1 million. But I don't have $1 million in the bank and I don't want to get a loan for $1 million. What if I come and work for you? You pay me my same salary. I learn your trade. I learn to manage it. Eventually you do a little bit less, and then in 10 years, you're completely out of the business. I'm able to pay for your business out of the profits of the business. I'll make, we'll pay everybody, but out of the profit, that'll go directly to you. And then once we hit that $1 million account, the business is transferred to me and you're moving on. A lot of these people are going to go, that's very, it's kind of like a retirement built in. Mm-hmm. The alternative is they're not going to find someone to buy their business, and it's simply going to not exist anymore. Mm-hmm. And either the person dies. Well, the wife isn't going to continue to run the business if she's not part of the business. Mm-hmm. Maybe the kids don't want to. It just goes away, and then they do what? They estate sale all the tools and the equipment, and it basically goes
to one. That's the thing. Yeah. So it's like the classic saying. I think this is how we fight back. It's the whole you're gonna own nothing and you're gonna be happy and you're gonna be replaced by robots. I mean, to your point, Deuce, like it will turn into that if we don't pay attention to exactly what you're talking about right now. Because yeah, we need to make sure that there is a good succession from this, because to your point, if even like 1 or 2% are not able, that is so much detriment to our society that I don't think is being looked at it closely enough, because people are like, oh, well, yeah, they're going to retire and the baby boomers will pass on their wealth. Well, is it going to be held up in courts and litigation, and then it only goes to a few people, plan. And so to your point, it's like, yeah, now more than ever, I'm seeing like, oh, okay, so nobody's going to come and save us and help us. They'll be happy to let that go that way. We need people like us and other people that see the vision and say, like another gentleman I know, he's doing live streams, and he has a TV channel 24/7, runs streams, and I was talking about this with Ardia. He's going to dedicate a channel just to this. It'll be kind of like QVC, right? You go on and you learn about, you know what I mean, and can have this kind of just understanding of, hey, there's a massive need. We need more people to realize this and the severity of what this, because to your point, a lot of these business owners don't even know. They themselves are like, oh, it's just me, it's just my business. What is that? But it's like, no, you're adding into so much into the society and keeping things running and propped up that now Amazon's going to literally own everything, you know what I mean? And Apple and all, and so.
Yeah. And the key is this, is yes, our goal as our mission as a nonprofit is to get people the skills to do the thing. But there's all these other things that you have to do for business: sales, marketing, customer acquisition, invoicing, accounting, HR, the leadership. There's a bunch of stuff, and most people don't want to deal with it. So the reality is AI can help you. And this is my plug for Tony here, is he can help you develop a strategy and develop a plan and to put these things into practice. And then, the goal is ultimately is for us to provide you a resource where a business owner goes, man, I want to sell, help me, help. And we connect. And then we find the young people to come in and learn the trades and learn the skills, the things that AI cannot do. I don't, maybe, 50 years from now, maybe we'll have robots that come into the house and do the plumbing for you, or the roofing or the construction. You know what, maybe, but currently that is a skill that is very local. Mm-hmm. You're not going to be outsourced. Somebody in India is not going to do the plumbing or the roofing or the, the truck driving. But we have to get to a point where we figure out what we don't know. We plug the holes. And I'm thinking that we're definitely going to need to do a part 2.
Yes.
But Tony, I just want to give you a chance. If people want to get to know you or contact you, how can they do that?
Yep. My main website, IamTonyB.com, is probably usually the best way to reach me. I just keep that website as like a link tree, kind of all my social medias and everything from there. So yeah, definitely reach out to me, or, LinkedIn, Instagram, Tony B, so try to keep it simple and unique. But yeah, definitely, I am currently technically in stealth mode for this new startup, but, I've shared a lot about the vision and how we're positioning. I'm just, want to work with valued partners that want to work with us as well. And then again, still productizing the AI that I see, to your point, like I feel like a Steve Jobs a bit, right? Like I'm on the precipice of building another iPhone. And so I'm not because I want to, or anything, it's because of God thing, right? And I want to have a lot of value and economic impact that is distributed through these talents and things he's given me. So definitely stay tuned to how this new render, I already have the name, working on the logo, certain things, like I'm doing it right this time, setting it up, more protection, more layers, because like anything in business, failures are never failures, they're just lessons. And if you look at it that way and you take it that way, anytime I, had a very valuable lesson I learned, I made sure, hey, like you said, the hot stove, you don't touch that stove again, right? You make
hopefully
sure,
you learn from it. Yes.
You do it right this time.
So Tony, I want to thank you for sharing your incredible journey, insights, and wisdom with us today. Your story is a powerful example of how faith, innovation, and service can come together to transform lives. To our listeners, to my Eagles Wing Academy brothers and sisters, for the business owners, for the people that are looking at either getting into a skilled trade or making an exit from the skilled trade, or even just donating and providing for somebody, to help somebody in the future. I want to thank you for joining us. If you found this episode valuable, Share it with someone who needs encouragement in their work, leadership, or business walk. This has been the Eagle's Wing Podcast. I'm your host, Deuce Brandt, praying for your skillful and godly wisdom. And until next time, stay soaring.
God bless. Thank you.